This is the 3D VIEW-MASTER adventure Fantastic Voyage. Fantastic Voyage is the story of the CMDF, the Combined Miniaturization Detection Force. This team of individuals stands alone against Earth's unknown enemies, beings from strange, spectacular, even supernatural worlds beyond all earthly limitations. The team's leader, Jonathan Kidd, is a tough, no-nonsense government agent. Before he became a secret agent, he was an athlete, a decathlon champion, an expert pilot, and a noted archaeologist. Guru, the ageless Hindu, is a master of the mystic arts, hypnotism, sleight of hand, yoga, and ESP. Erica Lane is the third member of the team, cheerful and outgoing. She's a communications expert and biologist. Busby Birdwell, small, nervous, and nearsighted, is the world's greatest engineer. These four, Kidd, Guru, Erica, and Busby, have gathered in CMDF's secret underground HQ to watch the launch of an earthbound rocket from an alien world deep in space. VIEW-MASTER Reel 1. Picture 1. As they watched, the spacecraft rose from the crystal formations of a foreign moonscape. While inside the cabin, two astronauts breathed a sigh of relief, glad to be free of the planet's deadly grasp and on their way home to the good Earth, third planet from the Sun. Picture 2. The astronauts settled back, comfortable, secure and safe in the knowledge that the trip ahead would be easy, wholly automated and uneventful. At that moment, however, their unrushing craft was being invaded by a silent army of curious-looking crystals, an army unlike anything known to man. Gaining entry through the ship's ventilator system, this body of mysterious intruders seized upon the ship's life support system, seeming to feed on the crew's vital oxygen supply. Certain that their best and, perhaps, only hope rested with the CMDF, they managed to get off a coded radio message before they drifted into a death-like slumber, the victims of anoxia or oxygen starvation. Picture 3. Professor Carter, fifth member of the team, but a man who remained on duty at home, hastily summoned the others for a high-level command conference. At the same time, he introduced Dr. Kelvin Castam, a world-famous interstellar biologist who would be included on the upcoming mission, which in Carter's opinion was necessary. Picture 4. Your job, Carter ordered, is to intercept the spaceship, investigate those crystal particles and report back to me. We have every reason to believe they may, in time, endanger the Earth's supply of oxygen. That said, the team, Castan included, met the CMDF's miniaturization machine, a Busby Birdwell invention which could reduce man to new dimensions, making it possible to combat Earth intruders, whatever their size. You'll be reduced to 1 to 150th your normal size, Carter told them, and radio beamed through space. You will have to find a way to enter the jet exhaust ports on the ship once you're there. Goodbye and good luck. Picture 5. Radio beaming, that ultra-fast means of transportation which whisks travelers through the heavens at 172.8 miles per second, placed the Voyager within visual range of the spaceship, hurtling homeward at great speed. From here on in, the success of the mission would be in the hands of Jonathan Kidd. The searing flames of the jet exhaust seemed at first an impossible mode of entry to the huge space capsule. One among their small number, however, solved this problem. He who understands the flame, Guru, the Hindu claimed, will not be harmed by it, and he advised Kidd to seek a path in the pure light near the center of the flame. Picture 6. There are, even in this age of science and technology, things the Birdwells of the world cannot understand. That they were successful in their passage is a fact. How, for the time being, must remain an unexplained mystery. Kidd's routine progress report, a matter of great interest since miniaturization lasts but 12 hours, stated only that they had passed through a series of engine parts and motor tubes, eventually entering the cabin itself through an overhead ventilator. The CMDF team made a quick survey of the area, swooping low over the unconscious astronauts on their first pass. The cabin seemed clear of the deadly crystals, or perhaps they were merely hiding. If you will look for them, Erica told Jonathan, Guru and Birdwell, Dr. Castan and I can examine the astronauts. Picture 7. Kidd parked his small craft in mid-air, directly above one of the giant men, close enough that Miss Lane and Castan could jump clear of Voyager and land lightly on the prone figure below them. While Erica bent over the astronaut, Dr. Castan hurried to the other lifeless form at his side. Erica found there was evidence of life in her man. He is still breathing, though he won't be for long, she thought to herself. He has barely enough oxygen to survive. So complete was her attention to the patient that Erica failed to notice she was in immediate danger. The missing crystals emerged from beneath the astronaut's outstretched arm, creeping slowly and silently toward her. Some old instinct, perhaps a feeling older than man, alerted Erica to the menace closing in around her. VIEW-MASTER Reel 2, Picture 1. Seeing this, Jonathan Kidd circled overhead, trying to figure a way he might rescue the one lady of his crew. He eventually chose a tool once used by cowboys in America's West, a lasso, a lariat as the looped ropes were called in border towns next to Mexico. Amazingly, Kidd's aim was right on target, but the unexpected happened. The crystal split in two. Now the danger to Erica had increased. Desperate needs call for desperate measures. The leader of CMDF had no choice but to fly the fragile Voyager near enough to stage a pickup, though that might put all the remaining crew in jeopardy, for reasons best known to the crystals themselves. Kidd's old Western rope trick seemed to scare them off for a while, long enough at least for Castan and Miss Lane to leap aboard the Voyager. Picture 2. After hearing Erica's report, Kidd decided on a course of action, with Birdwell's help that could safeguard the Earth's future. Time was running out. The capsule, you'll recall, was speeding toward our planet. Should it collide with our small blue world, the mysterious crystals would suffocate all life on it. Acting on Birdwell's scientific calculations, the pilot dropped a spare tank of oxygen from Voyager's supply into a test tube, hopeful that the crystals would be attracted to it as Busby had theorized. Picture 3. The engineer, watching his plan in action, smiled with glowing satisfaction, feeling that he was now even with the Hindu mystic, a man Birdwell considered an uneducated outright phony. The crystals, as he had planned, were in an excited state, drawn as if by a magnet to the oxygen in the test tube. He was confident that phase 2 would go equally well. That part of his overall plan called for a 3-man team which would leave the Voyager to fasten a set of chains lowered from the ship's bottom around a glass bottle cap located conveniently near the test tube. Next, their ship's hydraulic system would lift the cork into position above the tube, where the team could secure it firmly in place. Kit, Guru and Erica volunteered for duty on the team, with Birdwell staying behind to supervise the job. Keston backed off, saying, "I'm afraid I wouldn't be of much use to you or your friends, Mr. Kidd." Picture 4. Again, everything went as Busby Birdwell had expected. The team functioned perfectly, according to his plan, and when the cap was in place, the chains again lifted to the belly of the ship. The team well out of harm's way, Busby flew the craft directly at the test tube, firing a powerful laser gun at the container and its cork. Zap! The two parts were fused into a solid, all the crystals locked inside one piece of glass. Picture 5. Dr. Keston, who had been a passive spectator to all the action, now became a player in the drama. He approached Busby from the rear as the engineer leaned from the cargo door. In a flash, he had given our nearsighted friend the boot, kicking him out of the Voyager to the floor of the larger ship, in which they all continued toward a rendezvous with Earth. Clearly, Keston held the upper hand. Obviously, he was a member of the other side, a group long dedicated to the overthrow of everything for which the CMDF stands. Picture 6. The doctor's face, once masked with deceptive smiles, was now hard, sinister and smirking. Assuming control of the good ship Voyager, he banged the delta-winged vehicle into a screaming dive. Like all of man's tools, the craft could be used for good or evil, seemingly intent on ramming the test tube. At the last possible moment, however, he executed an Immelman turn, launching a rocket from the vessel's forward fire control station as he pulled up and away. Upon impact, the glass container disintegrated in a mind-shattering explosion, bursting into dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of pieces. And in that one monstrous moment, the crystals were loosed, free again to feed upon the oxygen-rich blood of Jonathan Kidd, Erica, Lane, Guru and Busby Birdwell. Picture 7. Professor Carter, meanwhile, watched a viewing screen in the underground HQ back on Earth. He was upset, and as the hours passed, he grew increasingly nervous. There were but 4 hours, 55 minutes left to the CMDF of the 12 allowed them in the miniaturization process. Then Carter's radio crackled. A transmission from space was coming through. The professor recognized the voice as Keston's. Strange, he thought, but his fears had, for the moment, been calmed. After all, Keston had stated, "We've experienced a little trouble on this end. I've been asked to tell you that everything is under control." The CMDF team, while all this was happening, had only a single thought among them: survival. They raced toward an astrotape recorder. It seemed their only refuge, and you may remember they were themselves little bigger than a tape recording. VIEW-MASTER Reel 3, Picture 1. realizing it was but a matter of time before the team would be discovered by the crystals. Kit made a dash for the on-off control knob of the machine. Straining against its bulk, he was able to send the dual reel spinning, an act which sent the crystals flying in all directions. The magnesium concentrates within the tape, he was to explain later, had established an invisible force field that bent the magnetic lines on which they seemed to travel. Picture 2. Faced with a dual threat from the crystals and the madman at the controls of the Voyager, Mr. Birdwell knew now that he had to contact the professor somehow. There was, it seemed, little he could do but to ask that Carter push the destruct button, which would demolish them all, the Voyager, the capsule and the crew. But it would, if he were successful in cutting through the ship's communications cable, save the world. CMDF HQ, this is DF. I ask you, destruct! He was coming through loud and clear on the loudspeaker back home, though his message was in garbled secret code. I repeat, destruct! Picture 3. Kit, who had been playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek with Dr. Caston, seeking shelter first among tape recorder tubes and then among the tangled cables of the capsule's communication system, now laid his life on the line again. Gambling on the long shot, he climbed to an air conditioning vent near the top of the ship. There were just 3 hours and 30 minutes left. Caston, seeing Kit, winked toward him, knowing that he could be destroyed with one rocket. Aiming for a kill, he found he'd already fired his last round. The magazine was empty. Well, there are other ways, the doctor muttered in a frenzy of despair. I'll crash the Voyager into him. It doesn't matter anyway. 11 more minutes and we'll enter Earth's atmosphere. At this speed, we'll burn to a crisp, but before we go, I'll get that sneaky Kid. Carter was betting hope against hope, giving them every chance the time would allow. The master mission clock on the wall above him indicated there were 7 minutes till re-entry. His finger was on the button. Picture 4. The crazed doctor zeroed in on the team's captain. It appeared a certainty that he would die in an instant, but for Guru he might have. The man of the East had one more trick up his sleeve. Closing his eyes in a mysterious old ritual known to few, he cast a spell. Caston now saw more than one Jonathan Kid, not just 2 or 3, but many. The doctor shook his head and blinked his eyes. Which is the real Kid? How to choose? In the midst of his confusion, he crashed into the wall. Voyager fell to the floor like a bird without wings in bits and pieces. Picture 5. Another threat. The crystals closed in on the leader as he struggled with the air conditioner's control switch. It was through a vent. He recalled that the crystals had first gained entry to the capsule, and if he could engage the switch, push it to exhaust, the suction might sweep them out into limitless space, where they would orbit the Earth, at least until some permanent means of eliminating them could be found. At his urging, the others joined him on the grill. Kit threw the switch in the nick of time. Fortunately for all concerned, the crystals were getting too close for comfort. With a sudden swoosh, the ventilator sucked them past the bodies of the team, stuck against the grill, as some giant vacuum cleaner might sweep up your floor. Picture 6. The countdown continued. Birdwell, realizing time was of the essence, dropped to the floor and, finding Voyager there, searched among its rubble for the ship's radio. As if by magic, it had been spared, and miraculously, Keston had been only slightly dazed in the rending collision. He worked feverishly with the transmitter while Guru placed the doctor in a trance. In lieu of ropes or chains, a hex would do. Now, if only this thing will work, Busby said a silent prayer. We may still be in business. This is the Voyager, he said. Cancel your destruct. There was no answer. This is the Voyager, he repeated. Cancel our order. I repeat, cancel the destruct order. Do you read me? And this time Carter heard the faint, scrambled message. He removed his finger from the button, grabbed a big gulp of air and replied, Roger and out. Picture 7. Their mission completed. The 4 members of the CMDF returned home again. The lessons learned far out in interstellar space would prove invaluable to the still growing population on Earth. And perhaps as importantly, the crew had learned some lessons of its own. Birdwell gained more respect for Guru. Upon self-examination, the engineer had decided his one and only complaint about the man was that he was different. Now, as they stood together at the viewport, he understood what the ageless mystic meant when he said, only fools make an issue of the differences between illusion and reality. Turning from his instrument panel to Erica, Kit asked, What are you doing tonight? I understand there's a full moon. Some things never change.